On November 28, 1960, a Soviet orbital capsule designated OD-7 completed its third orbit and fired its retro rockets on schedule. Ground tracking confirmed the burn. The capsule's trajectory changed. It did not descend toward Earth, it accelerated away from it. The orbital mechanics are not in dispute. The tracking data is in the file. The retro burn worked correctly. The engine fired in the correct direction with the correct duration. The capsule's velocity vector changed exactly as a successful retro burn should change it. But the resulting trajectory was not toward Earth. It was away from Earth, accelerating, with a final tracked velocity of 11.4 kilometers per second, above Earth's escape velocity. The capsule did not fall, it left. I found this file through a space object tracking registry I was systematizing for an institutional inventory of Soviet orbital program monitoring records. OD-7 appeared as an anomalous entry, a capsule officially listed as destroyed by atmospheric re-entry in November 1960, whose tracked orbital data shows a final trajectory that never intersected the atmosphere. The object is listed as destroyed. The trajectory says it is somewhere else. Nothing personal. An object listed as destroyed whose tracking data does not support destruction. Discrepancies between official status and tracking data are what archivists investigate. The Soviet space program in 1960 was conducting orbital test flights in preparation for the first human spaceflight, which would occur in April 1961. The program's failures were suppressed. Its successes were announced. The gap between what was launched and what was publicly acknowledged was substantial. In those days, secrets were impossible to keep from the state. Every transmission was monitored, every launch was tracked, every failure was documented and buried. Today, you have a choice. NordVPN encrypts your internet traffic and keeps your identity hidden from anyone trying to monitor what you do online. If you want to protect your privacy, check the link in the pinned comment for an exclusive deal. OD-7 is not in any public record of Soviet space launches. It is in the classified tracking registry as an object launched on November 26, 1960, completing 3 orbits over approximately 72 hours, with a pilot aboard whose name in the program file has been replaced throughout with the designation Pilot O.D. Septiny. The pilot was alive during the 3rd orbit. The transmission records confirm this. He was transmitting on the mission frequency, his voice recordings are in the file, and the content of his transmissions during the final 73 minutes of contact constitutes the central document of this case. The Italian radio amateur brothers Giudica Cordiglia, who monitored Soviet space frequencies from their station near Turin throughout the early 1960s, intercepted a transmission on November 28, 1960, that they recorded on magnetic tape. The recording is referenced in the program file. The Soviet program was aware of the interception, and the existence of the Italian recording is noted in the internal documentation alongside the program's own higher quality recordings of the same transmission. The Italian tape is the public trace of an event the Soviets recorded far more clearly. The program's own transcript of the pilot's final 73 minutes, prepared from the mission recording, covers the period from the retro burn at 1447 GMT through the last received transmission at 1600 GMT. The first 16 minutes are technical, the pilot reporting the retro burn sequence, confirming burn completion, beginning to report the expected deorbit parameters. At minute 17, the parameters are not what he expected. At minute 19, he reports what the window shows. The transcript from minute 19 forward.
Ground. The horizon orientation is wrong. Earth is not in the correct quadrant for descent approach. I am seeing stars in the quadrant where I should be seeing Earth limb. Requesting clarification on attitude. OD7, we are reviewing your telemetry. Please confirm all systems nominal. All systems nominal. Attitude thrusters responding normally. The problem is not the systems. The problem is the window. I can see the Pleiades in the quadrant that should show Earth. I am not descending. Please confirm you are receiving my position data. Ground, we are receiving. Stand by. OD7. Standing by. I want to report that I'm observing something outside the forward window. It appeared approximately 2 minutes ago. I'm going to describe it because description is my function and someone needs to know. It is pressed against the outside of the glass. I do not know what it is. It is not ice. I know what capsule ice formation looks like. I trained on this. It is not a reflection. It is outside the glass and it is moving. Not randomly. It is oriented toward me. Whatever is looking at me from outside is doing so deliberately. I'm going to keep describing it until I lose signal or run out of air, whichever comes first. Please relay everything I transmit.
Please relay everything I transmit. A Soviet cosmonaut, having established that he was not returning to Earth and that something was outside his window, making a professional decision. Continue observing, continue transmitting, provide ground with everything you have. This is what he had been selected to do. The program file notes, in his psychological assessment, that he had been chosen specifically for his capacity to maintain observational function under extreme conditions. He maintained it for 54 more minutes. The transmission continued. The complete transcript runs to 14 pages. I am going to describe what he described. He described something that maintained contact with the outer surface of the forward window without drifting. In microgravity, objects pressed against a spacecraft surface do not maintain position without active effort, and what he was observing was maintaining position relative to the window as the capsule moved. He described a surface texture that he compared, after some consideration, to the inside of a geode. Crystalline, structured, with an internal geometry that he could not fully resolve because of the angle of light. He described what he interpreted as an eye or eye-like structure, though he noted repeatedly that this interpretation might be anthropomorphic projection, and he was recording his observation, not his interpretation. He described the structure as having depth, as extending backward from the glass surface into a volume that he could not determine the extent of, because the extent was beyond the range of what he could see in the available light. He described it as having noticed him noticing it. The transcript's most extended continuous description occurs at minute 41, when the pilot apparently shifted his position to get a better angle on the window and was able to observe more fully for approximately 8 minutes before the light changed. The pilot continued his transmission, his voice steady despite what he was witnessing.
OD7. I want to give you a detailed description of what I'm looking at while the angle is good, because the light may not hold. The structure against the glass is approximately, I'm estimating based on the window frame as reference, approximately 60 to 80 centimeters in its widest visible dimension. It is not flat. It has depth extending away from the glass that I cannot measure. The surface I can see through the glass has a geometry that I keep wanting to call intentional. I know that is not an observation, that is an interpretation, but I cannot find a better word for geometry that has this much internal consistency. It looks like something designed to look like what it looks like. I can see the eye structure more clearly now. I'm going to stop calling it an eye structure because that is my nervous system applying a familiar category to something I do not have a category for. It is a region that has different optical properties from the surrounding surface. It reflects differently. It responds to my movement. When I shift, the region shifts in a corresponding way. This is the thing I keep returning to. Corresponding. Whatever this is, it is responding to me specifically. Not to the capsule moving, to me moving. I want to note, for the record, and for whoever is listening to this on the ground, that I'm not frightened. I am aware that I should probably be frightened, and I'm not. And I do not know if that is training or something else. I'm going to keep describing until I cannot.
He kept describing for another 32 minutes. The mission controller who was managing ground communication during this period was Colonel Vasily Morozov, 51 years old, a veteran of the Soviet tracking and communication infrastructure who had run ground support for earlier orbital tests. He called Moscow 14 minutes after the trajectory anomaly became clear, 8 minutes after the pilot began describing what was in the window. The telephone record from November 28, 1960, 15:03 GMT.
Morozov, I am calling on the emergency line to report a trajectory anomaly and a concurrent situation I need to characterize immediately. Moscow duty officer, proceed. Morozov, OD-7 completed the retro burn on schedule. The burn was nominal. Telemetry confirms correct thrust duration and direction. The resulting trajectory is not a descent trajectory. The capsule is moving away from Earth at increasing velocity. Current velocity is above escape threshold. The capsule is not returning. Moscow, engine malfunction. Reverse thrust. Morozov, no. The engine fired in the standard orientation. The burn was correct. The trajectory result is not physically consistent with a correct burn in that orientation. The burn should have produced a descent trajectory. It produced the opposite of a descent trajectory. I cannot explain the mechanics. Moscow, what is the pilot reporting? Morozov, the pilot is calm. He is transmitting observations. He has reported an object outside his forward window that has been there for approximately 8 minutes. He is describing it in detail. He is not reporting system failures. He is observing. Moscow, can he do anything? Morozov, no. The capsule is above escape velocity and moving away. There is nothing he can do, and nothing we can do. He knows this. He made a decision about 12 minutes ago to spend the remaining transmission window observing and transmitting rather than the other options. He is a good officer. Moscow, record everything. This conversation, the transmission, all of it. When contact is lost, the program did not exist. The pilot does not exist. The capsule does not exist. Is that understood? Morozov, understood. I want a note for this record that he asked us to relay everything he transmits. I'm noting that we received it.
I am noting that we received it. Morozov added a sentence to a conversation that would be classified into non-existence, addressed to the pilot who had asked that everything be relayed, because the relaying had happened and someone needed to record that it had. The transmission was lost at 1600 GMT, 73 minutes after the trajectory anomaly was detected. The pilot's voice is audible in the mission recording through the last few minutes of contact, describing with undiminished precision what was outside his window, until the signal dropped below the ground station's reception threshold. The final words in the transcript, approximately 30 seconds before loss of signal:
"It has been here since before the burn. I think it was here before that. I think it came with us from the start. I don't think it was waiting for us. I think we were waiting for it."
I don't think it was waiting for us. I think we were waiting for it. Here's the first contradiction. The official status of OD-7 in the Soviet Orbital Object Registry is: Object ceased to exist. Uncontrolled atmospheric re-entry, November 1960. This status was entered by the Tracking Division and has remained unchanged in the registry for 60 years. The official status is the basis for the public non-existence of the mission. If the capsule re-entered and burned, there is no surviving hardware, no ongoing situation, nothing to explain. The tracking data for OD-7 in the same registry shows the object's final tracked position at 11.4 kilometers per second, on a trajectory with a positive hyperbolic excess velocity, the technical term for a trajectory that does not return to its point of origin. A hyperbolic excess trajectory does not re-enter, by definition. The tracking data and the official status are not compatible. Both are in the same database. The official status describes atmospheric re-entry. The tracking data describes escape trajectory. The capsule cannot have done both. Here's the second contradiction. The psychological profile attached to pilot OD-7's personnel file describes the selection criteria for his assignment: above standard mission training, psychological stability in the uppermost performance percentile, and this is the selection criterion that distinguishes his profile from other candidates: exceptional capacity for sustained observational function under conditions of extreme personal stress. The program was selecting for someone who could keep watching and keep reporting when most people would stop. The mission record shows that he was never given any information about what the mission was specifically designed to observe. The official mission plan describes a standard orbital qualification test: 3 orbits, systems check, re-entry, no observation protocol, no specific instruments beyond standard capsule instrumentation, no target. He was sent up to perform a routine orbital test with the specific selection criterion of being someone who could maintain observation under extreme stress, and the mission produced a situation requiring exactly that capacity, with no observation protocol to guide it. Either the mission planning process selected for a capability that happened to become relevant by coincidence, or the mission was designed with knowledge that the capability would be needed. Here is the third contradiction, the document that should not exist. The orbital object tracking database that led me to this file contains a notation added in 1979, 19 years after the mission, to the OD-7 record. It reads,
"Object tentatively identified in Palomar Observatory data. Distance 0.3 astronomical units. Vector consistent with original departure trajectory."
The notation is initialed but not signed. It has no follow-up entry. 0.3 astronomical units is approximately 45 million kilometers. 19 years after OD-7 left Earth orbit at escape velocity, something at the expected location on the expected trajectory was visible to optical telescopes. The Palomar identification is tentative. The object is at the edge of detectability at that distance, but the position is consistent. The trajectory is consistent. I searched for subsequent tracking entries. In 1989, 29 years after the mission, the Soviet Deep Space Tracking Network logged a signal on the OD-7 mission frequency. Not in Earth orbit, at a distance of 2.1 astronomical units, approximately 315 million kilometers. The signal? Carrier frequency only, no modulation. A tone, a beacon. OD-7's mission frequency, a beacon, at a location and distance consistent with an object that had been traveling in a straight line at approximately 11 kilometers per second since 1960. Carrier without modulation is not a data transmission. It is a presence signal, the simplest possible radio output, the transmission equivalent of a light left on. A beacon is activated deliberately. Something on OD-7, 29 years after departure, was deliberately transmitting its presence. I have been sitting with what that means for 3 weeks. The pilot's transmission ended at 1600 GMT on November 28, 1960, when the capsule exceeded the ground station's reception range. His final observation, I think we were waiting for it, is the last human voice in the mission record. After that, nothing, for 29 years. Then a beacon. Not a voice, not a data transmission. A beacon on the mission frequency, from the expected position of the capsule. As though someone, or something, at that location wanted to confirm it was there. The pilot's capsule had a design life of approximately 72 hours. He had a consumable supply for approximately 5 days. He has been in that capsule, by the tracking data, for 64 years. I am going to close this file. I am going to note the tracking registry discrepancy as reviewed. I am going to log my access and not think about the arithmetic of what 64 years means for the pilot's consumables, because the arithmetic leads somewhere I am not equipped to go. What I can note is this: the mission record exists. Morozov said, "I am noting that we received it." The pilot asked that everything be relayed. It was received. It was filed. Someone, in 1979, added a tentative Palomar identification to a record that officially described a capsule that no longer existed. Someone, in 1989, logged a beacon signal at 2.1 astronomical units on a mission frequency that officially belonged to a mission that never happened. The file exists because someone kept putting things in it long after they were supposed to stop. I am closing the folder.